Mara Delgado scrolled through her phone, her thumb freezing over the unexpected message from her sister, Eva. It was blunt, clinical, almost robotic, devoid of the affection Mara had always showered her with. Just letting you know the guest list for my launch is finalized. Had to cut a lot of people. Hope you understand. Love you. Mara stared at the screen, her heartbeat thudding in her chest. Her own sister, the girl she had practically raised, wasn't inviting her to her long-anticipated fashion show, the one Mara had helped fund with countless hours of overtime, bank transfers, and emotional support. At 31, Mara was a senior software engineer at a prestigious tech firm in Chicago, her life structured and meticulous, except when it came to her family. Eva had always been the artist, the dreamer. Their mother, Isabel, coddled Eva's ambition while dismissing Mara's achievements as expected, never extraordinary. It was always Mara who paid the bills, fixed Eva's mistakes, soothed her breakdowns, and patched her wounds. And now, when Eva's dreams were finally within reach, Mara had been erased like an unwanted edit from a final draft. She dialed Eva's number, her fingers trembling with frustration. No answer. Typical. A call to Isabel was met with dismissiveness. Mara, you're being dramatic. It's just a fashion show, not a family reunion. Isabel's voice was tight, more annoyed than concerned. You know how stressed Eva is. Don't make this about you. But for Mara, it was about her. It was about years of sacrifice swept aside like dust. She had been the one to keep Eva afloat during art school, covering her rent, her supplies, her late-night Uber rides home when Isabel wouldn't answer her calls, and now she was being cast aside as if her support had meant nothing. Mara's chest tightened, her frustration morphing into a clarity she hadn't felt before. If Eva didn't want her there, she wouldn't be there. In fact, she wouldn't be anywhere Eva or Isabel could reach. For once, Mara decided, she would do something entirely for herself. Mara's memories came rushing back, a relentless tide of moments where her own dreams had been pushed aside for Eva's sake. Growing up in a single-parent household in Chicago, Mara had always been the responsible one, the glue holding their small family together. Isabel, their mother, made it clear from the start that Mara's role was to be the steady, uncomplaining daughter. When their father walked out, Mara was the one who found part-time jobs to help cover the bills, leaving behind her teenage social life and personal ambitions. But she didn't mind, not then. Eva was only 13 at the time, fragile and devastated. Mara poured all her energy into being the protective older sister, the one who made sure Eva's creative spark never dimmed. Isabel constantly gushed over Eva's talent, her potential as a fashion designer, and how she was destined for greatness. Eva's dreams quickly became the family's collective mission. When Eva decided to attend a prestigious art school in New York, it was Mara who dipped into her savings, wiring money for textbooks, materials, and rent. Mara even took on freelance coding projects, burning herself out to keep Eva's dreams alive. Isabel's praise for Eva never faltered, but her words for Mara were always laced with obligation rather than appreciation. You're the strong one, Mara. Eva needs you. That line had been repeated so often it felt carved into her bones. When Eva called, sobbing over a failed internship or the cruelty of the fashion industry, Mara always picked up, no matter the hour. Once, after a 12-hour shift at her firm, Mara received a hysterical call from Eva at 2 a.m. Eva had missed a crucial deadline for her final portfolio presentation. Her entire semester's work was in jeopardy. Without a moment's hesitation, Mara stayed awake with her, sketching ideas and providing technical support. By dawn, Eva had submitted something passable. Not a word of thanks followed, just a relieved, "You saved me." Isabel's response had been even worse. "Of course you helped. That's what family does." But Mara had started to notice the unevenness of that equation. Family support was never mutual. When Mara secured a major promotion, Isabel's response had been lukewarm at best. "That's good, Mara, but you're already so established." Eva's the one who needs our help. And Mara had swallowed her disappointment like she always did. But now, with Eva's dismissive message still flashing on her phone screen, all those moments of neglect and unreciprocated loyalty were no longer so easy to ignore. It wasn't just that she had been left out of the launch event, it was the culmination of years of being treated as if her sacrifices were expected, not cherished. Her contributions had been buried beneath Eva's endless need for attention and praise. And Isabel had allowed it, encouraged it even, as if Mara's purpose was to be nothing more than Eva's safety net. Mara stared at her phone, Eva's cold, dismissive message still burning her eyes. It was the final deliberate stroke that cut deep, severing whatever fragile bond had remained between them. She tried calling Eva again, her voice tight with a mix of hurt and anger, but as usual, Eva's phone went straight to voicemail. The realization crashed down on her. Eva hadn't accidentally left her out. She had made a choice. Mara's breathing grew shallow as she dialed Isabel's number, her fingers trembling with frustration. Isabel picked up on the second ring, her voice dripping with false cheer. "Mara, sweetheart, what's going on?" It was the same saccharine tone she used whenever she wanted to avoid conflict. Mara didn't bother with pleasantries. "I just got a message from Eva. She said I'm not invited to her show, the one I practically funded." The silence on the other end stretched just a beat too long. Then Isabel's sigh came, the same condescending sound she always made when Mara dared to express hurt. "Oh, Mara, don't be dramatic. It's just a fashion show. Not everything has to be about you." The words landed like sharp, icy pebbles against her chest. "It's not about me, Mom. It's about the fact that I've been supporting her for years, emotionally, financially, everything. And now she can't even bother to include me?" Isabel clucked her tongue, her frustration clear. "Eva is under so much pressure. You know how hard it is for her to manage all of this. She had to make cuts, and you should be understanding." Understanding. That word had been beaten into Mara's psyche like a branding iron. Understand that Eva needed support. Understand that Isabel had to focus on Eva's fragile nature. Understand that her own achievements were secondary because she was the strong one. "I've been understanding my whole life," Mara shot back, her voice quivering. "But this isn't about understanding. This is about respect. And I've been treated like I don't matter." Isabel's response was dismissive. "You're overreacting. Just let Eva have her moment." "Why are you making this about you?" A hollow, burning sensation curled in Mara's stomach. She couldn't keep doing this, constantly bending herself to accommodate Eva's whims while receiving nothing but apathy in return. For the first time, she felt the weight of all her sacrifices pressing down on her like an unbearable burden. Without thinking, Mara opened her laptop and typed "luxury tech workshops in Japan" into the search bar. She had always dreamed of traveling there, immersing herself in the cutting-edge technological landscape she loved. But every time she saved enough money, Eva needed help. Eva always needed something. Not this time. Mara scrolled through packages, her heartbeat quickening. Within an hour, she had booked a month-long experience across Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. High-end workshops, conferences with renowned developers, exclusive tours of tech hubs. No more guilt, no more resentment. Just her passion, and her own happiness. As she confirmed the booking, her phone vibrated with another text from Isabel. She didn't even read it. For the first time in her life, Mara was choosing herself. The air in Tokyo was crisp and cool, a refreshing contrast to the suffocating heat of resentment Mara had left behind in Chicago. As she stepped out of the airport and into the bustling, neon-lit cityscape, she felt a thrill of excitement ripple through her. It was her first time abroad, her first real adventure that wasn't driven by duty or obligation. Checking into her luxury hotel, Mara marveled at the sleek, minimalist design of her room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Shibuya's endless energy below, a blur of lights and movement that pulsed with life. As she unpacked her suitcase, she noticed something unusual. She felt light, as if a weight she had carried for years had finally been lifted. Her itinerary was ambitious: high-profile technology conferences, hands-on coding workshops, tours of advanced robotics labs, and even private meetings with renowned developers she had idolized for years. Each morning she woke up early, invigorated by the sheer joy of immersing herself in what she loved. From exploring the latest AI innovations at a cutting-edge exhibition to collaborating with engineers at a prestigious workshop in Kyoto, Mara allowed herself to be absorbed completely by her passion. The days stretched out like golden threads, each moment woven into a tapestry of fulfillment and discovery. She found herself laughing more freely, smiling without restraint, her mind fully engaged in the present instead of anchored to the past. During her stay in Kyoto, she took a break from the tech-heavy itinerary to wander through the city's tranquil gardens, her senses indulged by the sight of cherry blossoms drifting gently to the ground. Standing at the edge of a serene koi pond, Mara reflected on how different her life felt now. It wasn't just the freedom from her family's expectations, it was the freedom to be herself. Her social media posts were filled with photos of breathtaking cityscapes, robotics exhibits, and even traditional tea ceremonies she stumbled upon by chance. The comments from friends and colleagues poured in, congratulating her on finally taking a step for herself. Yet, from her family, there was only silence. No messages of support, no likes, no calls. For once, she found she didn't care. While attending an exclusive conference in Osaka, Mara presented her own project, a smart application she had been developing on the side for months. To her surprise, her demonstration was met with enthusiastic applause, followed by an invitation from a prominent investor to discuss its potential. The recognition was intoxicating, a validation that had nothing to do with familial approval. It was the kind of success she had always dreamed of, earned by her own merit, celebrated by strangers who valued her skills without reservation. By the time she reached her final destination in Osaka, Mara was a different person. The insecurities that had once chained her to Ava's endless needs were dissolving, replaced by a newfound sense of purpose. Standing atop the Omeda Sky Building, the cityscape stretching infinitely below her, Mara realized she had found something far more valuable than acceptance from her family. She had found herself. And for the first time, that was enough. Mara was halfway through a robotics workshop in Osaka when her phone vibrated incessantly, disrupting the serene focus she had finally found. She glanced at the screen, her cousin Luca's name flashing repeatedly. Reluctantly, she stepped out of the conference hall and answered, her voice flat and impatient. "Luca, I'm in the middle of something important. What's going on?" His voice spilled through the line, breathless and frantic. "Mara, you won't believe it. Eva's fashion show. It's a complete disaster." The words tumbled out of him, overlapping in his eagerness to explain. Apparently, the show's technical team had botched the sound and lighting cues, leaving the models to walk the runway in awkward, disjointed silence. Worse, Eva's headlining model bailed minutes before her collection was supposed to debut, citing unprofessional management and lack of preparation. Sponsors pulled out, angry at the chaos, and one prominent fashion critic had already posted a scathing review online. The word amateurish was trending alongside Eva's name. Luca's tone grew somber. "And Isabel? She's furious. She's blaming you for not being there, saying you abandoned them when they needed you the most." Mara's lips twisted into a bitter smile. The irony wasn't lost on her. After years of sacrificing everything to support Eva, she had become the convenient scapegoat for their own incompetence. "Let me guess," Mara said dryly. "Eva's panicking, and Mom's turning me into the villain because I wasn't there to clean up the mess?" Luca hesitated. "Pretty much. Isabel's been calling you non-stop." And Eva, she's a wreck. She finally texted me to ask if I'd seen you, begging you to call her back." The apology Mara had longed to hear from Eva was nowhere in Luca's retelling. Instead, it was just desperation, Eva pleading for Mara's presence, not her forgiveness. Mara scrolled through her notifications, seeing missed calls from Isabel and Eva stacked like layers of discarded guilt. Her mother's messages were all harsh reprimands. "Mara, how could you be so selfish? You knew how important this was to your sister and you chose to run away. Family is supposed to stick together." There it was, the same old refrain of manipulation. Family loyalty demanded everything of her, but only when it served their convenience. It was never about love or appreciation. It was about control. Mara laughed bitterly, the sound startling even herself. Eva's failure had been inevitable. Her refusal to take responsibility, her insistence on relying on Mara for everything, had left her unprepared for the real world's brutal expectations. But Mara felt no pleasure in her sister's downfall, only a deep, weary clarity. As she pocketed her phone and returned to the workshop, Mara's resolve hardened. She was done being the scapegoat. Whatever chaos Eva and Isabel had created was theirs to fix. For once, Mara wasn't going to clean up their mess. Mara slid her phone into her bag and stepped back into the robotics workshop, her mind swirling with emotions she had spent years suppressing. The messages from Isabel and Eva had tried to yank her back into their orbit, where guilt and obligation had always outweighed her own needs. But something fundamental had shifted within her. For the first time, she saw their accusations for what they were: desperate attempts to reel her back into a dysfunctional cycle where her sacrifices were expected, but never appreciated. The clarity was both terrifying and exhilarating. Mara continued her presentation with renewed energy, showcasing the AI-driven application she had been developing in secret. As she spoke, the audience's interest grew palpable, their admiration genuine and free from the dismissive indifference she had endured from her family. After the presentation, a well-known investor approached her, his excitement undeniable. "Your application has real potential. I'd like to discuss funding." His words reverberated in her mind, solid and reassuring. This was her moment, her success, achieved on her own terms. The invitation to a high-profile developers' dinner later that evening was just icing on the cake. She accepted without hesitation, her thoughts finally free from the binds of guilt and resentment. That night, as she dined with industry leaders in a sleek, glass-walled restaurant overlooking Osaka's shimmering skyline, Mara realized just how small her world had been before. Eva's art shows, Isabel's constant demands, the endless expectation for Mara to drop everything and run to their rescue. It all seemed so distant, so trivial. The conversations around her were challenging and inspiring, full of creativity and ambition. People valued her for her skills and insights, not for how much she could do for them. She laughed easily, sharing ideas and exchanging contacts with people who saw her as an equal, not a crutch. At one point, Mara excused herself to the balcony, the cool night air refreshing against her skin. Her phone buzzed again, but this time she only glanced at the notifications. More missed calls and texts from Isabel and Eva. Their messages had grown increasingly frantic, each one steeped in accusation and desperation. "You're being cruel, Mara. Eva's show is ruined and it's your fault. You should have been here. You were always the responsible one." The last line cut through her like a blade dulled by overuse. She had been the responsible one, and she was done playing that role for people who only acknowledged her worth when it served their interests. Mara turned off her phone, exhaling a long, steady breath. It felt like purging toxins from her lungs. For the rest of the evening, she allowed herself to simply exist in the moment, engaging with people who inspired her, laughing without restraint, and reveling in the freedom of being unburdened. It was both liberating and intoxicating. As the night wound down and she returned to her hotel, Mara reflected on everything that had brought her here: the betrayal, the guilt, the manipulation, all of it had been necessary to force her to make a choice. And she had chosen herself. For once, she wasn't running on someone else's schedule, trying to meet their needs while erasing her own. Her future, once dictated by her family's demands, now stretched before her like a blank canvas, waiting for her own brushstrokes. Back in her room, she scrolled through photos of her trip. Tokyo's bustling tech districts, Kyoto's serene temples, Osaka's glittering skyline. They were moments she had created for herself, memories untainted by obligation or compromise. As she lay back against the plush hotel pillows, Mara felt something she hadn't experienced in years. True contentment, the freedom to be herself, without guilt, without strings. For once, her happiness wasn't dependent on anyone else's approval. It was hers alone, and she intended to keep it that way. The journey home from Japan felt surreal. Mara gazed out of the airplane window, her mind drifting over the glittering skylines, tranquil gardens, and cutting-edge conferences she had immersed herself in over the past month. It was a journey unlike any she had taken before, one driven by her own desires, untouched by the hands of obligation or guilt. As the plane touched down in Chicago, Mara felt an unexpected calm settle over her, like a gentle current pulling her towards something new. The old Mara would have turned on her phone the moment the plane landed, bracing herself for an avalanche of messages demanding explanations and apologies. But this time, she waited until she was sitting in the back of her Uber, the cityscape flashing by her like a series of distant memories. When she finally powered her phone back on, it lit up with notifications from Eva and Isabel, all clamoring for her attention, but they no longer had the power to unsettle her. Instead of anxiety, Mara felt only detachment, as if she were observing someone else's life from behind a pane of glass. Her apartment was exactly as she left it, minimalistic, serene, and now finally free of the emotional clutter that had dominated her life for so long. She unpacked slowly, savoring the silence, her mind replaying the key moments from her trip. Her presentation in Osaka had gone so well that the investor, David Klein, had already followed up with a formal offer of partnership. As she read his email, Mara felt a thrill of excitement rather than doubt. This was her opportunity, one she had earned entirely through her own effort and skill. No family strings attached, no endless debts of gratitude to pay. The investment would allow her to launch her own project, an innovative AI application that she had been quietly developing on the side for months. For the first time, Mara felt empowered to shape her own future. Later that night, Mara sat at her desk, her laptop open to a blank document. She typed the title, Project Genesis. The name felt fitting. This was her new beginning, built from the ashes of all the expectations she had finally let burn away. As her fingers danced across the keyboard, concepts and ideas flowed effortlessly. The hours drifted by, and when she finally looked up, the city lights outside her window had melted into the soft hues of dawn. A smile crept across her face. This was the kind of exhaustion she craved, one born from passion rather than obligation. The following week, Mara attended an industry networking event, her first public appearance since returning from Japan. The event was packed with developers, investors, and journalists, but Mara held her own, her confidence a quiet but undeniable presence. During a live-streamed panel discussion, she was invited to share her journey, from her early days in coding to her recent trip abroad. "My trip to Japan changed everything," she admitted, her voice steady and genuine. "It reminded me that passion can't flourish if it's constantly overshadowed by obligation. I had to step away from the people who drained me so I could find myself again." Her words resonated with the audience, sparking conversations both online and off. The hashtag #LiveForYourself trended on social media for days, and her inbox filled with messages of encouragement and solidarity from strangers who saw themselves in her story. Mara continued to ignore her mother's and sister's attempts to drag her back into their chaotic orbit. She no longer needed their approval or validation. Every now and then she would catch herself wondering if Ava's career had recovered from the disastrous fashion show, but the curiosity was fleeting. Ava's journey was her own, just as Mara's was hers. As she expanded her network and refined her project, Mara discovered something she had almost forgotten. Happiness, not the fleeting, conditional kind offered by her family, but something deeper, rooted in her own achievements and sense of purpose. She was finally building the life she wanted, unburdened and unapologetic, and for Mara, that was everything. Mara sat at her desk, the soft glow of her laptop illuminating her focused expression as she made the final adjustments to her AI project. Weeks had passed since her return from Japan, yet the clarity and determination she had gained abroad remained unshaken. Her collaboration with David Klein had already borne fruit. Their combined efforts had attracted attention from major tech investors eager to support her vision. Project Genesis was no longer a distant dream, but a tangible reality, a creation born purely from her own passion and skill. And for the first time, Mara felt truly deserving of her success. There was no guilt attached to her accomplishments, no shadow of obligation trailing her every step. She had claimed this victory for herself, and the freedom it brought was intoxicating. But it was more than just career success that Mara had found. It was peace. The kind of peace that comes from releasing the weight of others' expectations and embracing her own worth. The messages from Isabel and Eva had trickled down to near silence, the endless stream of demands and accusations gradually fading as Mara continued to ignore them. She no longer felt the sting of their words, nor the compulsion to justify her choices. The boundaries she had drawn were firm, fortified by the understanding that her own happiness was worth protecting. Their attempts to manipulate her with guilt had lost their power. Sitting back in her chair, Mara scrolled through her email, her attention caught by one particularly heartfelt message. It was from a young woman named Nadia, who had watched Mara's panel discussion online. The message was long, filled with admiration and gratitude. Nadia described how she too had spent years sacrificing her own dreams to support a demanding family, always putting herself last. Inspired by Mara's story, Nadia had finally decided to pursue her own ambitions, enrolling in an art program she had postponed for years. Your courage to walk away from what was hurting you gave me the strength to do the same. Thank you for showing me that it's okay to put myself first, Nadia wrote. Mara felt her chest tighten, a swell of emotion building as she reread the message. This was what mattered. Not the accolades or investment deals, but the impact her journey had on others who felt trapped by the same invisible chains. The realization was both humbling and empowering. She had transformed her pain into something meaningful, something that could inspire others to reclaim their own lives. And as more messages like Nadia's continued to pour in, Mara understood that her story was far from over. She rose from her chair and walked to the window, gazing out at the glittering Chicago skyline. The city she had once felt so confined by now felt full of possibility. Mara's phone rested on her desk, silent and undisturbed. She no longer felt the urge to check for missed calls or messages from Isabel or Ava. They were part of her past, a chapter she had closed with finality and grace. Whatever bitterness lingered had been overshadowed by the fulfillment she had found in herself. Mara returned to her desk and opened a blank document, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. This time, she wasn't creating something to prove her worth to anyone else. She was building a future she could be proud of, one rooted in her own dreams and desires. And as she began to type, the words flowed easily, unburdened by the guilt and resentment that had once held her back. Mara had reclaimed her life, and she was determined to make it extraordinary. The next morning she shared a final post on social media, a photograph of the sunrise over Lake Michigan, golden light reflecting off the water. The caption read, "Healing isn't about fixing what others broke. It's about finding the courage to build something better for yourself." Within minutes, the post had hundreds of likes and comments, words of encouragement and gratitude from strangers who resonated with her journey. But Mara didn't linger on the notifications. She closed the app and looked forward, her gaze fixed firmly on the future she was now creating for herself. The lesson from Mara's journey is a powerful reminder of the importance of valuing one's self and setting healthy boundaries. For years, Mara sacrificed her own happiness and ambitions to support her sister and please her mother, constantly bending under the weight of their expectations. But no matter how much she gave, her efforts were never acknowledged or appreciated. The turning point came when Mara chose herself for the first time, embarking on a journey of self-discovery and fulfillment that wasn't tied to her family's approval. Through her experience, Mara learned that love and loyalty should never come at the cost of her own well-being. True empowerment comes from acknowledging one's own worth and refusing to be a perpetual source of comfort for those who only take without giving. By walking away from a toxic cycle of guilt and manipulation, Mara not only reclaimed her happiness, but also inspired others to do the same. The story teaches us that self-respect and personal growth are essential to living a fulfilling life. Choosing oneself is not selfish, it is necessary. Sometimes, the greatest act of courage is stepping away from those who refuse to value you.